Kevin Marshall had completed more than 3,000 skydives in his life. And in 12 years, he had never once canceled a jump for personal reasons. Not once. Until the night a woman in a blue cloak appeared in his dream and whispered for words that changed everything forever. No, not tomorrow. A miracle from the Virgin Mary that began while Kevin slept. But before we continue, leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. I'd love to see how far the miracles of the Virgin Mary are reaching. Now let's go back to the beginning. You know that kind of person who seems born for one thing? The kind who finds their purpose early and never lets go of it? Kevin Marshall was exactly that kind of person. 34 years old. Skydiving instructor in Arizona. 12 years jumping from planes. Thousands of dives completed successfully. And according to everyone at the airfield, Kevin was fearless. Not reckless. Never reckless. That's what made him respected. Kevin followed procedures perfectly. Every buckle checked twice. Every parachute inspected carefully. Every weather condition studied in detail. If something felt unsafe, he stopped it immediately. But if conditions were good, Kevin jumped. No hesitation. No fear. No excuses. His co-workers trusted him completely. Students requested him by name. Because Kevin had that rare kind of confidence people naturally follow. Quiet confidence. Calm confidence. The kind that makes everyone else feel safer simply because you're nearby. Kevin was tall and lean, with permanently sunburned skin from years beneath the Arizona sky. Short brown hair. Sharp pale eyes, always analyzing everything around him. He woke up at the exact same hour every morning. Drank the same coffee. Took the same route to work. Inspected equipment in the same exact order every single day. If you do everything right, nothing goes wrong, he always told his students. And honestly, people believed him. Because with Kevin around, it genuinely felt true. At the airfield, Kevin became known as the man who never backed out. Could have a headache. Could have slept badly. Could be going through problems nobody else knew about. Didn't matter. If the weather was safe and the gear checked out, Kevin jumped. Period. Do you know anyone like that? Someone who trusts their own method so completely they stop believing anything unexpected can touch them? Kevin was exactly like that. Faith meant nothing to him. Religion meant nothing to him. Not because he hated it. He simply didn't believe in things he couldn't see, measure, or explain. Whenever conversations turned spiritual, Kevin usually smiled politely and changed the subject. Until one strange afternoon several months earlier. An older woman named Magdalene signed up for skydiving lessons. She was around 50 years old. Warm smile, gentle voice. The kind of person who spoke to everyone kindly. Most people her age came to the airfield nervous. Terrified even. But Magdalene was different. She seemed peaceful, excited, almost grateful just to be there. It's always been my dream, she told Kevin during training. Before I die, I wanted to know what flying feels like. Kevin smiled politely. Well, you picked the right place. After her first successful jump, Magdalene cried the moment her feet touched the ground. Not from fear. From happiness. Pure happiness. Later that afternoon, while the sun set behind the Arizona mountains, Magdalene approached Kevin holding something small in her hand. A silver medal. Tiny. Old. Worn smooth from years of use. The image of the Virgin Mary engraved on the front. Take this, she said softly. It's for protection. Kevin almost refused immediately. Not because he wanted to offend her. He simply didn't believe objects carried protection. To him, safety came from training. Experience. Preparation. Not medals. But when Kevin looked into Magdalene's eyes, he saw sincerity there. Real sincerity. And he didn't want to hurt her feelings. Thank you, Mrs. Magdalene, he said politely while accepting the medal. Thank you very much. The woman smiled warmly. Almost relieved he'd accepted it. Kevin slipped the little medal into the zippered side pocket of his cargo pants. And forgot about it completely. Weeks passed. Maybe months. The medal stayed there untouched. Hidden in the pocket Kevin almost never used. Eventually he forgot it existed at all. Because in Kevin's mind, protection meant procedures, not prayers. Then came Friday in October. The Friday, everything changed. It was supposed to be a perfect weekend for jumping. The forecast showed clear skies, calm wind, excellent visibility. Exactly the kind of weather skydivers hope for. Kevin had scheduled a special formation jump Saturday morning. 6 experienced skydivers. Complex freefall formation. Kevin leading the entire group, as always. The team had already practiced together multiple times. Everyone knew their position perfectly. Everything was ready. Everything was safe. Kevin left the airfield that evening completely normal. Nothing unusual. Nothing strange. He drove home, took a shower, ate dinner alone while watching television, then went to bed around 10 o'clock. Routine. Simple. Ordinary. And then, he dreamed. Not an ordinary dream. Not one of those blurry, strange dreams people forget seconds after waking. This dream felt different immediately. Too real. Painfully real. Kevin found himself standing inside the aircraft. The same aircraft he'd flown in hundreds of times before. He could feel everything. The vibration beneath his boots. The deafening engine noise. The smell of fuel and metal inside the cabin. Everything exactly perfect in detail. He stood near the open door in full gear waiting for the signal to jump. His teammates positioned around him exactly where they should be. Everything looked normal. Until Kevin looked toward the door and saw her. A woman standing directly in front of the opening. Exactly where nobody could possibly stand. At first, Kevin couldn't understand what he was seeing. Because the woman almost seemed surrounded by light itself. Not harsh light. Soft light. Warm light. The kind that makes everything around it feel strangely peaceful. He couldn't see her face clearly. The brightness behind her prevented it somehow. But he saw the cloak. Deep blue. Not ordinary blue. A color so vivid it almost seemed alive. Like the fabric carried light inside it. And somehow, even without seeing her face, Kevin immediately knew who she was. He never understood how. He wouldn't later be able to explain it logically. But deep inside, he knew. The Virgin Mary. She stood motionless looking directly at him. And then she spoke only 4 words. No, not tomorrow. Nothing else. No explanation. No warning beyond that. Just 4 simple words. Then Kevin woke instantly. Darkness. Silence. His bedroom. Everything normal. Everything exactly where it should be. Kevin grabbed his phone immediately. 3:47 a.m. His heart slammed violently inside his chest. So hard he could actually hear it. His hands sweaty. His breathing uneven. And those words still echoing inside his mind. No, not tomorrow. Kevin sat upright in bed, rubbing both hands over his face. What the hell? He whispered. He tried calming himself logically. It's stress. That's all. Pre-jump anxiety. But even while saying it, Kevin knew it wasn't true. Because he had never experienced anxiety like this before. Not once. Not in 12 years. He had jumped during storms. Jumped with injured shoulders. Jumped after sleepless nights. Nothing ever shook him mentally. Nothing. Until now. Kevin tried going back to sleep. Closed his eyes. Pulled the blanket higher. But every single time he drifted off, he saw the blue cloak again. Saw the light. Heard the words. No, not tomorrow. Eventually, Kevin gave up sleeping entirely. He lay awake staring at the ceiling until sunrise slowly filled the room. Restless. Irritated. Angry at himself for being disturbed by something so irrational. Because that's what bothered him most. Not the dream itself. The feeling. The uneasiness wouldn't leave. That heavy sensation in his chest. That instinct screaming something was wrong even while logic insisted everything was fine. Morning finally arrived exactly as forecasted. Bright Arizona sunlight. Blue skies. Perfect weather. A flawless day for skydiving. Kevin got out of bed exhausted from lack of sleep. But tiredness wasn't unusual. He'd jumped in worse condition plenty of times before. That alone wouldn't stop him. Nothing ever had. Yet while getting dressed, Kevin suddenly froze. Because for the first time in 12 years, he didn't want to go. Kevin stood frozen beside his apartment door with the car keys still in his hand. Something felt wrong. Terribly wrong. Not fear. Kevin knew fear. Fear sharpened people. This felt different. Heavier. As if something deep inside him kept whispering the same warning over and over again. Don't go. Kevin shook his head aggressively, trying to clear his thoughts. This is ridiculous, he muttered. It was just a dream. Nothing more. That's what he kept telling himself as he locked the apartment and headed toward his car. The Arizona morning looked perfect. Bright blue sky. Warm sunlight. Not a single cloud. Exactly the kind of weather skydivers dream about. Yet even while driving toward the airfield, that tightness inside his chest only grew stronger. When Kevin finally arrived, several cars already filled the parking lot. His co-workers moved around the hangars laughing normally. Everything looked ordinary. Normal. Safe. Morning, Kevin. Tyler waved from across the lot, carrying his helmet under one arm. Tyler was one of the most experienced jumpers on the team. Confident, skilled, the kind of guy who trusted Kevin completely. "Morning," Kevin answered while forcing a smile. But Tyler immediately noticed something off. "You okay?" "Didn't sleep much." Kevin brushed it off quickly and kept walking. Inside the main hangar, the secretary pointed toward a stack of mail resting on the reception counter. "Kevin, this came for you." Kevin barely glanced at it. Mostly advertisements, equipment catalogs, routine junk mail. He grabbed everything carelessly and tossed it into his glove compartment outside. "I'll look later." But he never did. Because minutes later, something happened that made the dream feel far more real. Kevin entered the equipment room alone. Metal lockers lined one wall. Shelves stacked with helmets and parachute gear covered the other. The room smelled exactly like it always did. Fabric, rubber, oil, dust. Nothing unusual. Kevin opened his locker and removed the parachute pack assigned for the jump. Brand new equipment. Recently delivered that week. Top quality. Perfect condition. He placed the pack onto the inspection table and reached for the zipper. And suddenly, Kevin froze. Roses. The scent hit him instantly. Strong. Fresh. Impossible to ignore. Not faint perfume. Not imagination. Real roses. As though someone stood directly beside him holding an entire bouquet against his face. Kevin's hand stopped moving completely. His heartbeat accelerated violently. Because immediately, his mind returned to the dream. The blue cloak. The glowing woman. The impossible warning. Kevin looked around the room quickly. Nothing. No flowers. No air freshener. No explanation. Tyler stood across the room, checking his own equipment while casually whistling to himself, completely unaware. The smell remained for maybe 5 seconds, then disappeared completely. Gone so suddenly Kevin almost questioned whether it happened at all. But it had happened. He knew it, because now his hands were trembling. Actually trembling. Kevin leaned both palms against the inspection table and took several deep breaths, trying to steady himself. "This is insane," he whispered. He forced himself to continue inspecting the parachute. Every strap, every buckle, every connection, everything perfect. Exactly as it should be. Yet the uneasiness inside him refused to leave. And now the dream wasn't alone anymore. Now there was also the scent of roses. Half an hour later, the entire team gathered for final instructions. 6 experienced skydivers seated around Kevin, waiting confidently, like always. Normally, Kevin led these briefings effortlessly. He could explain procedures in his sleep. Every movement memorized perfectly after thousands of jumps. But today, something strange happened. Kevin started speaking, then suddenly stopped mid-sentence. His mind went completely blank. Total silence filled the room. Kevin stared ahead, trying desperately to remember what came next. Nothing. "Kevin." Sarah frowned slightly. "You okay?" Kevin blinked hard. Yeah. Sorry." He reached for his notes. And instantly everyone in the room noticed something impossible. Kevin Marshall was using notes. Tyler exchanged a quick glance with Sarah. Neither said anything. But Kevin saw the concern in their eyes immediately. Because this wasn't normal. Nothing about today felt normal anymore. Kevin finished the briefing somehow. Answer questions. Explained the formation. Did everything mechanically. But inside, the battle only grew worse. Those 4 words kept repeating endlessly inside his head. No, not tomorrow. Except now it wasn't tomorrow anymore. It was today. Right now. Eventually the team boarded the aircraft. Kevin entered last. Like always. The inside of the plane felt exactly like the dream. And that realization alone nearly made his stomach turn. Same roaring engines. Same vibration beneath his boots. Same smell of fuel. Same positions. Everything identical. Kevin sat near the door, trying to steady his breathing while the plane climbed higher and higher into the Arizona sky. Below them, the desert stretched endlessly beneath golden sunlight. Beautiful. Perfect. But Kevin couldn't appreciate any of it. Because the feeling inside his chest kept growing stronger. Almost unbearable now. The pilot finally gave the signal. Jump altitude approaching. Everyone stood. Checked straps. Adjusted helmets. Routine. Familiar routine. Kevin stood too. But something felt wrong immediately. His legs heavy. His breathing shallow. His chest tight. The side door rolled open. And the wind exploded into the cabin. Loud. Violent. Deafening. Far below, the world looked tiny. Roads like thin lines. Cars like insects. Everything exactly the way Kevin always loved seeing it. Normally, this moment filled him with adrenaline and excitement. Today, it filled him with dread. Kevin moved toward the door first. Formation leader. Everyone behind him waiting for the signal. And then suddenly, his body stopped. Completely. Kevin stared out into open sky, unable to move another inch. His muscles locked. His chest tightened violently. And for one horrifying moment, he genuinely felt like something invisible held him back physically. Kevin, Tyler shouted over the wind. Go. Kevin couldn't. Every instinct inside him screamed the same thing now. No. Sarah looked alarmed instantly. Kevin, what's wrong? Kevin slowly turned toward them, and then said words nobody in that aircraft ever expected to hear from him. I'm not jumping today. Silence. Strange, impossible silence despite the roaring engines and screaming wind. Tyler stared at him in disbelief. What? I'm not jumping, Kevin repeated. Not today. The others looked completely stunned. Because Kevin Marshall never backed out. Never. Sarah stepped closer. Kevin, are you okay? Kevin swallowed hard. I honestly don't know. But I can't do this. Tyler studied Kevin's face carefully, and what he saw there frightened him immediately, because Kevin genuinely looked terrified. Not nervous. Terrified. Finally, Tyler nodded once. Then we're not jumping either. The others agreed immediately, because formation jumps depended on trust. And if Kevin felt something was wrong, nobody wanted to ignore it. The aircraft door closed again, and slowly the plane began descending back toward the airfield. Kevin sat silently staring at the metal floor the entire ride down. Ashamed, confused, humiliated. 12 years. Over 3,000 jumps. And today, a dream stopped him. A dream and the scent of roses. When the aircraft landed, Kevin exited first. He didn't want conversations. Didn't want questions. Didn't want anyone looking at him. But Tyler caught up quickly outside the hangar. Kevin, wait. Kevin stopped reluctantly. What happened up there? Tyler asked quietly. Kevin rubbed both hands over his face. I don't know. That's the problem. You've never frozen like that before, Sarah added gently. Kevin looked at them both. Exhausted. Lost. I know. I've never seen myself like this either. Nobody spoke for several seconds afterward. Finally, Tyler placed a hand on Kevin's shoulder. Forget it. We'll jump another day. Kevin nodded quietly. But deep inside, something told him another day might never have come at all if he'd stepped through that aircraft door. Kevin drove home in silence after leaving the airfield. The entire ride felt unreal. His hands stayed tight against the steering wheel, his mind replaying the same moment over and over again. The open aircraft door, the wind, the sky below him, and his body refusing to move. The rest of Saturday felt wrong somehow. Heavy, disconnected. Kevin stayed inside the apartment all day. Tried watching television. Couldn't focus. Tried reading. Couldn't get past the first page. Tried sleeping. Couldn't shut his mind off long enough. Because now a new question tortured him endlessly. Why? Why did she say that? Why him? Kevin kept fighting against the thought entirely. No. He refused to become someone who believed in visions and supernatural signs. He was practical, logical, grounded. The kind of man who trusted evidence, facts, reality. And yet, one undeniable fact remained. He didn't jump, and he still couldn't fully explain why. Eventually, exhaustion dragged him into sleep late that night. Then Sunday morning arrived. 10 a.m. Kevin's phone rang suddenly beside the bed. He grabbed it half awake. Marcus, another instructor from Tucson. Hello. Kevin, Marcus said immediately, his voice urgent. Did you see the recall notice? Kevin frowned in confusion. What recall? Silence for half a second. Then Marcus answered. The parachutes. Kevin sat upright instantly. The manufacturer issued an emergency recall for the new equipment batch. Critical defect. They sent notices to all certified instructors several days ago. Kevin's heartbeat slowed strangely. Coldness spreading through his chest now. What kind of defect? Marcus exhaled sharply. One that affects deployment. Main chute and reserve. Kevin froze completely. That's impossible, he whispered automatically. I inspected everything myself. It's hidden internally, Marcus explained. Undetectable during visual inspection. That's why they issued the recall. If someone jumps using one of those parachutes. Marcus stopped himself briefly, then quietly finished. They probably don't survive. The room suddenly felt too small, too hot, too quiet. Kevin's mouth went completely dry, because suddenly, everything connected. The dream, the roses, the panic inside the plane, all of it. Kevin. Marcus's voice sounded distant now. You still there? Kevin swallowed hard. Yeah. Then another realization struck him violently. The mail. Kevin jumped out of bed and ran outside barefoot to his car, his hands shaking badly now. He yanked open the glove compartment, and there it was, the pile of unopened papers he'd ignored Friday morning. Advertisements, catalogs, flyers, and buried among them, a white official envelope with the manufacturer's logo printed across the corner. Kevin grabbed it instantly, tore it open, and read, critical failure. Use strictly prohibited. Undetectable through standard visual inspection. Immediate recall required. Kevin read the page twice, then a third time, because his brain refused to fully process what his eyes were seeing. The notice had been there the entire time, inside the glove compartment, only feet away from him. If he had checked the mail carefully Friday morning, he would have known. If he had opened the envelope, he never would have boarded that aircraft. But he didn't. The only thing that stopped Kevin from jumping was the dream. Kevin slowly lowered himself onto the edge of the couch, still holding the crumpled recall notice in one trembling hand. And finally, the emotions hit him all at once. Fear, shock, relief, confusion, gratitude, everything together. Because for the first time in his life, Kevin faced something logic alone could not fully explain. He had trusted his eyes for 12 years. Trusted procedure, trusted equipment, trusted experience. And none of those things revealed the defect hidden inside that parachute. The only warning came while he slept, from a woman wrapped in blue light, whispering 4 simple words. No, not tomorrow. Kevin covered his face with both hands. And suddenly, he cried. Not from weakness, not from embarrassment, from the unbearable realization of how close he came to death without ever knowing it. For years, Kevin believed protection came from preparation alone. But now, something else had intervened. Something beyond training, beyond logic, beyond what he could physically touch. He sat there alone in silence while morning sunlight slowly filled the apartment. Then finally, Kevin lowered his hands, looked upward slightly, and spoke aloud into the empty room. Thank you. His voice cracked immediately. I don't understand any of this. I don't know what happened. But thank you. Thank you for not letting me jump. The following weeks changed Kevin more than the previous 12 years combined. He returned to the airfield eventually, returned to teaching, returned to the sky. But something inside him was different now, quieter somehow, more careful, more open. Kevin didn't tell everyone about the dream. Only a few people close to him. Marcus, Sarah, Tyler, a couple of trusted friends. Because honestly, part of him still feared sounding insane. Yet every person reacted the same way after hearing the story. Silence first, then the same question. Do you think it was her? The Virgin Mary? Kevin never tried forcing an answer, never argued, never preached. He simply gave the same calm response every time. Maybe. Then usually after a pause he added softly. Or maybe it was coincidence. Maybe my subconscious noticed something I missed consciously. Maybe it was luck. And then sometimes, with a small half-smile, Kevin finished differently. Or maybe it really was her. Eventually, Kevin remembered the little metal Magdalene had given him months earlier. The one he completely forgot about. He searched through old clothes until finally finding it still inside the zippered pocket of his cargo pants. Small silver medal. Virgin Mary engraved across the front. This time when Kevin held it, it felt different somehow. Not magical, not mystical, just meaningful. Now he carries it during every jump. Always. And before boarding the aircraft each morning, Kevin pauses quietly for several seconds, sometimes with eyes closed, sometimes touching the metal gently between his fingers. And he prays. Not complicated prayers, simple ones. For protection, for wisdom, for the students trusting him with their lives. And maybe the greatest change of all, Kevin finally learned to listen. Before the dream, he ignored instinct completely, dismissed intuition as weakness, nonsense, emotion. Not anymore. Now if something feels wrong, he stops, no matter how irrational it seems, no matter what anyone thinks. Because once, a feeling saved his life. Months later, Tyler said something to him while preparing equipment one morning. You've changed. Kevin looked up from the parachute straps. How? Tyler shrugged. You seem calmer. like something stopped weighing on you. Kevin smiled quietly. Maybe Tyler was right. Because strangely, after nearly dying without realizing it, Kevin stopped feeling invincible. And somehow, that made life feel more precious instead of more frightening. He never had the dream again. Never saw the woman in blue again. Never smelled roses inside the equipment room again. But he never forgot either. Because sometimes, a life changes completely through only a few seconds. A dream, a warning, a feeling impossible to explain, and a man finally willing to listen to something beyond himself. Maybe miracles don't always arrive dramatically. Maybe sometimes they come quietly, through dreams in the middle of the night, through instincts we almost ignore, through simple words whispered exactly when they're needed most. And if you made it this far to the end of Kevin's story, write parachute in the comments. The equipment he trusted completely, until something greater warned him not to jump. And every time I read that word, I'll know one more person still believes protection can arrive from places we cannot fully explain. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. And share this video with someone who may need hope today. May the Virgin Mary continue blessing and protecting you and your family. Amen.